So in this video, we are just going to demo and talk through just a couple of really basic wig measurements that you might be taking if you are making a wig or a hairpiece for somebody. So obviously doing this on yourself is not really recommended because I would never, if I was doing this for real, I'd never be able to like actually read the tape measure and figure out a bunch of these measurements. But I just wanted to kind of like talk through some of the measurements that I mentioned in the other video and to just give you a more like visual representation of it, because sometimes just like hearing it or reading it doesn't necessarily make as much sense as actually being able to see these things. I myself, as many times as I've done this, I have to constantly like look off to the side here and like look at my measurement sheet. So I think it is really important to just make one of those for yourself when you're doing things like this, because nobody expects you to be able to remember all these things, because it does get a little bit confusing after a while. So again, you want to make sure you've got a nice like flexible measuring tape. Very first thing you want to do is just the circumference. So basically this is like around like the widest part of somebody's head. And again, doing this on yourself, not necessarily ideal, right? But I would basically just like much nicer than what I have done just now, but you would want to wrap it around whatever like the widest part of your head is. So that's about right here for me. And that's going to tell you what the circumference of somebody's head is, and why that's important to know is that is going to help you figure out what wig block you would pick for them. That's going to help you kind of figure out somebody's hat size. If I know I have a wig that's really, really small, I go and look at somebody's chart, it says they have a 24-inch head, I will know right away. If they have a small, like, no, that's never going to fit if the wig is really small. Or if I know I have this wig that's huge, if I'm like, I can't remember if their head is smaller or larger, if I go and look and they have like a 21-inch head, probably not necessarily going to fit. So me personally, if I could only have like one measurement for somebody, knowing their circumference is super helpful. Again, if you can take these measurements both with your hair, just kind of in like its natural state and also in its wig prep, that is really helpful to you if you're not going to be doing a head wrap too. When you do a head wrap, somebody's hair would be in wig prep. But if you are not doing a head wrap, it's going to be a little bit tricky to figure out how much the size of their head would be changing when their wig prep is done. So you might want to do both regular measurements like this and also with wig prep. So again, so once you do your circumference, moving on, so the next thing that you would want to do would be to measure the diagonal circumference. So this is basically, you're going to be taking it from like this point, so kind of instead of going just like straight around the head, you're going to kind of take it just at a diagonal, right? So you can either do this over somebody's ears or you can do it behind. I feel like it's at least a little bit easier to kind of just go over them, at least if you're doing it on yourself. And so you're basically just like going to wrap it around your head, but you're going to wrap it more diagonally instead of just like horizontally around. Another one that you're going to do is going to be your temple to temple, but across the back of the head. So the point that you want to find for that is you want to like look at your hairline or look at somebody's hairline, and you want to see where it comes down the farthest. So I have an very interesting hairline here, so it kind of juts out the farthest about right here. So I would want to take this measurement from here to here on the other side. Just because on my temples, that's where my hair comes out the farthest. So you would do this, and instead of wrapping it across the forehead, it would get wrapped around like the back of the head essentially, right? So if I like started on this one, I'd end it on this side. So that would be kind of like your temple to temple across the back of your head. Another good basic one to have is front hairline to the hairline at the nape of your neck. So when they talk about like the nape of your neck, they basically just mean like, and again, you're probably not going to be able to see it, but it's like at the very base of your neck, wherever your hair stops growing, that is going to be your nape. I'm sure that was just like super bright and you can't see anything, but basically that is just like where like your wig is going to need to stop to cover all of your hair. So that's why it's important to kind of know like where that point is, because a lot of times you'll see, especially when you're doing like updos or something, they don't often cover the nape of somebody's hair, and then it's really like, well, what do I do to like have this hair styled up, but you don't want to see their natural hair? If you know that measurement beforehand and you're making a piece for somebody, you're gonna be able to know like, well, this is how far I have to like cheat something down in order to make it cover everything. So for that, you're gonna want to find like the center front essentially on somebody's head. So I kind of have a more prominent like center hairline, so I kind of know where that's at, and then I would just take this all the way straight down to like where my hair ends on my nape, and that would be that measurement. It's a little weird because I have a side part, so if it's easier for you to like give yourself a center part first, that's gonna help you kind of like line it up, but that's essentially what that one is. Another good one is ear to ear across the top of the head. So ear to ear across the top of the head is basically like as if you had a headband on. So I like to go like kind of like right behind somebody's ear, and then you would just like take it across the head as if it was a headband. And then you would want to take that measurement. And then one final one that's a really good basic one would just be the width of somebody's nape. So basically, so again, it's kind of impossible for me to show you that right now, but if this was the back of my head and that was the nape, right, like you would just take it right at like the base of your hair, and you would just know this is how wide my hair is on my neck, so basically like this is how much hair I'm gonna need to cover with my wig, so that way it doesn't just have like little tiny baby hairs everywhere. These are not the only measurements you will ever need to take if you are fronting something. There are far more advanced measurements that you will need, but if you are just like keeping basic head measurements for somebody on file, this is a really good place to start. But again, if I could only have one, I would love to know the circumference of somebody's head, and if you could know the circumference of somebody's head with their hair just how it naturally is, and also with their wig prep, you would be in an even better place. So hopefully that helps clarify some of these wig measurements a little bit more and helps things make a little bit more sense.